everyone, and welcome to Upcycled Adulting Reclaimed Midlife, where we are here to help you live your very best life in midlife and beyond. Today, we're going to be talking about sleep and perimenopause and menopause. Now, don't forget to subscribe because we're digging deep into how to feel your absolute best through perimenopause and menopause so that you can pursue your goals and chase your dreams and do all the things you've dreamed of doing in midlife and beyond. One of the most challenging things at this stage of life is sleep. And it is also one of the most important things throughout your life, but especially at this stage of life. Studies have shown that lack of sleep actually causes worse menopause symptoms. It is the number one predictor of how bad perimenopause and menopause will be for you. When we're not getting enough sleep, all of our symptoms are worse. And what's even worse than that is all of our disease risk goes up. Not only that, but we're much more prone to accidents and injury, which is a big issue for women in menopause and beyond as we start developing issues with things like osteoporosis and brittle bones. And let's be honest, falling at 50 is not the same as falling at 20. And we all know it. So we really want to make sure that we're getting that sleep so that we can protect ourselves from falls and accidents, so that we can protect ourselves from diseases like dementia, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, etc., and so that we can actually reduce our symptoms in perimenopause and menopause. Now, that said, sleep is also one of the most difficult things to do in perimenopause and menopause. Many of us find ourselves waking up in the middle of the night, struggling with insomnia and challenges falling asleep, having hot flashes, night sweats at night, soaking our sheets and being unable to sleep because of that. So there are so many situations and issues that are preventing good quality sleep at night just in our own bodies, without considering whether or not our husbands have started snoring or whether or not we are struggling with a mattress that maybe is too old and not as supportive as it should be. So there's so many things happening here that are preventing us from getting a good night's sleep. And today I'm going to talk about how to get a good night's sleep. And I have to tell you this, I would have paid any amount of money to have learned this 5 years ago. I had to learn this through trial and error, and it was just years of exhaustion. So one, I just want to mention here that one of the things that does help a lot with sleep is hormone replacement therapy. If you're not sure if it's for you, make sure that you go back and check out my videos where I get into deep discussion about hormone replacement therapy, how to talk to your doctor about it, how to know if it's right for you. I have been very clear about how I have a family history of breast cancer, and so I've done a lot of research here, and that doesn't necessarily preclude you from actually exploring hormone replacement therapy. Talk to a doctor who is a Menopause Society certified doctor. They are the experts. They specialize in menopause, and they can help you not only with hormone replacement therapy, should you need it, but also with any kind of medication related to sleeping. So we want to make sure that we're really mindful that we do have some medical options there. Let's talk about what we can do in our lifestyle and some natural ways to help us sleep better, though, so that right now you can start getting a better night's sleep, even if you're waiting to get in with your doctor. So the very first thing I'm going to talk about is sleep hygiene. Now, listen, y'all. I like to sleep in on weekends, just like the next person. I'm a night owl. I've always been a night owl. I was born a night owl. I have a granddaughter who is 6 years old, who was born a night owl. It's a real thing. So I want to just say that right up front because I actually feel like in my lifetime, and if you're a night owl for sure in your lifetime, you've gotten a hard time about being a night owl. It's not as simple as just waking up earlier. This is actually something that's hardwired. Your rhythm is a little bit different. Your circadian rhythm is a little bit different. And so that means that a lot of the advice that's out there about sleep and sleep hygiene might not necessarily be as applicable to you. Meaning things like go to bed earlier, wake up earlier, those things might not actually work for you. But what I am going to encourage you to do is to make sure that you set aside 7 to 9 hours a night for sleep. Now, in perimenopause and menopause, it's often better to set aside more time rather than less. And the reason why is that we often have more disrupted sleep. So, being able to be in bed for longer can really help us to get into that deeper sleep. And this has been a real thing for me. And I think that this is a bigger issue if you tend to have anxiousness at night. Where when I didn't give myself enough time to sleep, I would like lay in bed, look at the clock, have trouble falling asleep, and it would make me more and more anxious because I'd be laying in bed and I'd be like, well, now I only have 6 hours to sleep. Well, now I only have 5.5 hours to sleep. And that would actually make it harder to fall asleep. So make sure that you're giving yourself enough time in your bed to sleep. And as much as I hate to say this, because I like sleeping in on the weekend too, just as much as the next gal, but it's very important that we not do that. We really want to stick to some basic sleep schedule. So it's fine. I like to do within an hour because transitions are also hard for me. So I go to bed within an hour of this time and wake up within an hour of that time. And I stick to that as much as possible because it's important to have that routine so that you can get your body into a rhythm. Now, one of the things that really helps with having this routine is to actually expose yourself to light in the morning. And I joke a lot about how people are always talking about going to bed really early and waking up really early because I live in Michigan and it's not light here in the winter until about 8:30, and it doesn't get dark here at night until later either. So depending on where you live, you might have great morning light outside, but you might not. And so what I recommend is that you get yourself one of those light boxes or light lamps. You want it to be 10,000 lux. They are excellent for getting yourself that morning light. You want to sit in front of it, kind of to the side on an angle, for about 15 minutes in the morning. I like to do it while I drink my coffee in the morning. I find it very a nice relaxing way to kind of wake up and get going. So you want to expose yourself to that AM light, that first thing in the morning light. And before bed, you want to reduce light exposure. And I'm sure that you've heard this before. That means turning off your screens. I have a Kindle Paperwhite, and that does not emit blue light. Otherwise, you want to turn off all of your screens, TV, telephone, tablet, whatever it is, turn off the screens. I do not care if you have your phone on dark mode. I am here to tell you, as a person who's done app design work, that dark mode isn't what you think it is. It does not protect from all blue light. Also, blue light glasses are highly ineffective at preventing blue light. So yes, wear the blue light glasses in the evening, but that does not mean that you can continue on your phone watching your shows or on your tablet or your laptop until right before bed. You still need to turn off the screens 30 minutes to an hour before bed. I cannot emphasize that enough. That's going to help with good quality sleep hygiene so that you can fall asleep and so that you can wake up in the morning with your exposure to light. And by the way, I recommend the lamp, not turning on your phone and your computer and all of that, because you really don't need to bombard your brain with all of that outside influence and information first thing in the morning. That, by the way, is a recipe for morning anxiety. So, let's not go there. Next thing we're going to talk about is environment. Now, obviously, I just talked about getting rid of screens. So when I talk about environment, I'm going to say, let's get the screens out of the bedroom. Okay. I have 5 adult kids, so I sleep with my phone next to my bed so that if anybody has an emergency, they can get a hold of me at night. I'm not saying that you can't have your phone in your room, but what I am saying is we're not going to be looking at it at bedtime. Some of y'all might actually need to put it across the room to charge if you need it in your room so that you can hear from your kids. But I really want to emphasize that we are not looking at our phones before bed. Also, let's remove TVs from our bedroom. I know that this is really hard for some of you to hear. And let's stop working on our laptops and tablets in our bedroom. It's really helpful to keep our bedroom as a sleep space and to not multitask in our bedroom. It matters a lot to what happens in our brain. When you go into your bedroom at night, your brain should be thinking that you're there to sleep. That should automatically signal your brain towards sleep, not toward watching TV, working, having a snack. Okay. So we really want to reduce what we're doing in our bedroom because the way our brain works is that it associates location with activity. Just like we associate smell with memory, right? When you smell something, it'll remind you of something else. Your brain also associates location with activity. So if we actually make our rooms a space that is specifically for sleep, we are more likely to fall asleep quickly and to sleep well in that space. So let's reduce all the other things that we're doing in our room so that we are actually in our room knowing that this is where we sleep, right? In addition to that, we want to make sure that we have really good quality mattresses, sheets, and pillows. I don't know who needs to hear this, but it might be time to replace your pillow or to launder your pillow, to replace your bedding. If you are in perimenopause or menopause, you need to have quality sheets that are wicking and cooling. I recommend natural fabrics like bamboo to help actually keep you cooler, reduce night sweats, and make you more comfortable in bed. In addition, we want to make sure that our rooms are dark. Okay, so we need really good drapery in our rooms, and we want to make sure that our rooms are cool. And I'm talking 63 to 67 degrees, really cool. I highly recommend sleeping with a fan, and or if you don't like fans, sleeping with white noise because it's incredibly helpful to getting to sleep. You may also want to consider a weighted blanket, especially if you're struggling with night sweats, because a lot of times we sacrifice the weight of our bedding to being cooler. So a weighted blanket might help. I like to sleep with blanket layers. I find that that's helpful so that if I get too hot, I can remove a layer without being too cold, or I can add a layer back on if I get colder in the night. This is particularly true because I tend to sleep with my window cracked a little bit, and in winter, sometimes in the middle of the night, it gets really cold. So you definitely want to make sure that you are sleeping in layers. In addition, it's important that our rooms are not overly cluttered, that they are not a space of collection for odds and ends, and that they are not dusty because we want to make sure that we don't have a lot of airborne irritants and things like that. I also highly recommend getting rid of anything in your room that has artificial fragrance, and that includes fabric softener on your sheets. Switch from fabric softener to white vinegar. No, your sheets will not smell like vinegar. And if you like a little bit of fragrance, use a lavender linen spray that is made from essential oils. There are so many great options on Etsy. There's a lot of small sellers or small businesses that actually sell lavender sprays. Do not use artificial lavender fragrance. Artificial fragrances are endocrine disruptors. They're going to make your perimenopause and menopause symptoms worse. And in addition to that, they're likely to cause other irritations and to be disruptive to your sleep. So let's get rid of all of those. So now we have primed our bedroom to be the perfect place to sleep. Let's talk about how we get into bed. All right, so every night we want to have what I call an R&R bedtime routine. The R&R bedtime routine is something that I created for myself. My clients have been using it for years. It works. So I highly recommend an R&R bedtime routine. Grab a piece of paper and take some notes on this. And don't forget to subscribe. I talk a lot about sleep and bedtime routines. If this is something that you're really struggling with, you definitely want to subscribe to this channel. Or if you're struggling with perimenopause symptoms, menopause symptoms, make sure that you subscribe. Here's what an R&R bedtime routine is. It is a reset and relax routine. Now, It is very important for me because I tend to have a million thoughts at night. I have a very hard time with transitions. I'm very likely neurodivergent. To have a time in my evening to reset. Without this, what happens is I lay in bed and I have all the thoughts. I remember who I need to call tomorrow, what I need to do. I think about what I should have said to that person last week or last year. I wonder if somebody's mad at me. My head just keeps going. Okay. I always joke that I have solved most of the world's problems in bed at night with my head on the pillow, right? And then I fall asleep. I forget all that stuff anyways. I don't remember any of it. But I want you to know that my head gets going and I have anxious thoughts and I have difficult time sleeping and difficulty with some insomnia. So having that reset portion really matters to me. During that portion of my bedtime routine, I reset whatever needs to be done so that I can sleep soundly. I always do a brain dump where I take a minute and I set a timer so that I will actually not sit and stare at the piece of paper, and I write down everything in my head just to get it out on paper. I update my planner during this time to make sure that I know what's going to happen for tomorrow. And I do a lot of the things that other people would do in their morning routine because, as y'all heard at the top of this, I am not a morning person. I am a night owl. So that means it's better for me to prep my breakfast at night, to pack lunches at night, to lay out my clothes at night because in the morning, I have a really hard time getting moving. I have a hard time with energy. I have a hard time making decisions. And I am much more sensitive to decision fatigue. So getting that stuff done at night, knowing it's done, helps me to fall asleep, but it also makes my mornings easier. So I do all of that during the reset period of my routine. I leave all my screens on usually during this time. I do a lot of updates on my computer. A lot of times during this time, I might have a show going in the background while I'm making lunches. I like to do that. Then I turn all my screens off for the relaxed portion of the bedtime routine. And during that portion of the bedtime routine, I take my vitamins, which I'm going to be talking about in a few minutes. And I often grab a cup of chamomile tea and I read. I like to read a nonfiction book because I will get sucked into a book the same way I will Netflix, right? I could read all night long because I just got into a book. So instead, I read something that's nonfiction. I'll read a chapter or two. It's a great way, by the way, to keep myself learning and to keep myself mentally sharp. But it's also not something that I'm likely to stay up late reading, right? It's not a real page turner. I'm not sitting there thinking, boy, I've got to get through that next chapter to see what happens to the main character, right? I'm actually just reading to learn, and that helps me a lot in this time. So really what you're going to be doing here is something that's not super stimulating. This is also a time that if I'm going to take a magnesium bath, this is when I do it. And I typically, because my house is a two-story house, I do my hygiene stuff also in this relaxed time. If you are a person who finds it easier to do your hygiene stuff in the reset portion, go right ahead. That is not specific. It just works for me there. This is actually a thing that you can play around with a little bit. Another thing that works really well here is meditation, journaling, tapping, stretching. These things all work. You can do some relaxation yoga, but there is no working out after dinner for me because I'm a night owl. If you're a night owl, do not work out. Do not exercise after dinner. There's a good chance that it will keep you up. So we really want to avoid doing that. In addition, it's really helpful to avoid caffeine. Now, caffeine has a longer half-life than we think it does. So I like to actually say that the only time we should actually consume caffeine is within 1 to 2 hours of waking. You may find that in perimenopause and menopause, you're more sensitive to caffeine. Most people are. If that is you, then I highly recommend cutting way, way down in your caffeine and potentially giving it up. It can actually be triggering to anxiety. It can elevate cortisol levels. If you've done all the other things and you're still holding fat around the midsection or gaining in your midsection, it could actually be the morning cup of coffee causing that because of the elevation in cortisol levels. In addition, we want to avoid alcohol. I don't know if anybody else in perimenopause has noticed this, but I'm thinking you have. But we are much more sensitive to alcohol in perimenopause and menopause. Our bodies metabolize alcohol differently. So it's really important that we reduce alcohol or eliminate it because we are more likely to have anxiety. We will definitely have disrupted sleep. Yes, it might help you fall asleep, but you will not sleep as soundly. Studies have shown that in all ages, we do not sleep as soundly when we have consumed alcohol. So I would highly recommend avoiding alcohol. In addition, I'm going to say that we typically don't want to eat anything within 3 hours of bedtime. And here is a pro tip for you. 3 hours before bed, it can be really helpful to eat protein. Eating protein a few hours before bed can actually reduce any kind of cravings at night, and it can be really satisfying in the morning, meaning you wake up and you don't feel so famished or miserable or wonky. So about 3 hours before bedtime, having a glass of water and a snack that is a protein is really helpful. For a snack here, in case you're like drawing a blank on what in the world you would eat that has protein at that time, a hard-boiled egg is a good idea. It's not a ton of protein we're looking for. Hard-boiled egg, chomps. I am a super fan of chomps. Chomps, if you don't know, are a paleo-friendly, so they're really low in additives. They're like a meat stick, like a Slim Jim, and they're delicious. They have a lot of flavors. They have turkey ones. They have a huge variety. You could also do some tofu with salt or some edamame. That would be a really great snack in the evening. So we're just looking for a little bit of protein in the evening because it's very satisfying. It's going to help you hold over and it's actually going to help you fall asleep faster. If you find that you're more satiated with a little fat, add a little bit of avocado to what you're eating here and you are all set, good to go, or maybe some olives or olive oil. Great evening snack, some olives and some chomps. I'm just telling you right now, it's a great thing. Eat it 3 hours before bed. You will be glad you did. Now let's talk about supplements that will help you sleep because this is a big topic of conversation for people in perimenopause. In menopause, I see a lot of people talking about melatonin, and I want you to know that melatonin does not work the way you think it does. Taking melatonin right before bed is actually can be incredibly problematic. It's too late to be taking melatonin. It can have a residual effect in the morning, so please stop doing that. If you want to try taking melatonin, you want to take it after dinner, right around dinner time after dinner. It takes time to actually set in. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of melatonin because there's a lot of mixed research about whether melatonin impacts your body's natural ability to produce melatonin. So I favor things like morning light and reduced light at bedtime and having this very structured bedtime routine that really helps my body naturally produce more melatonin. Instead, I lean into supplements like ashwagandha, magnesium, and CBD. And I have to tell you, CBD has been magical. So I'm going to talk about those three supplements real quick. Ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is a great supplement all around in perimenopause and menopause. A lot of women take it because ashwagandha helps also with weight management, decreasing cortisol levels, etc. The issue with ashwagandha is that it is very burdensome to your liver. It's also very common for women in perimenopause and menopause to have what is called non-alcohol fatty liver disease. And if you happen to have fatty liver disease, if your liver enzymes are consistently high, it might be problematic for you to take ashwagandha, and you should avoid it until you talk to your doctor, and you should also talk to your pharmacist. You should talk to both of them about taking ashwagandha and consider talking to a naturopath as well. If you do take ashwagandha, I highly recommend reducing other liver burdens while you're taking it. One, you take it at night because it does cause some sleepiness. And you really want to be conscientious about what over-the-counter medications you're taking with it. For example, things like acetaminophen are also hard on your liver, so you might want to be mindful of that. And if you're taking oral HRT, you also want to be really mindful of taking ashwagandha with that. That can be a little more burdensome to your liver. So make sure that you talk to your menopause specialist about ashwagandha with HRT. If you do take ashwagandha, though, the protocol is generally to take it for 3 months, then take a month to 2 months off. Stop taking it altogether for a month to 2 months to give your body time to clear it and then go back to it. The next one is magnesium. Now, listen, magnesium is excellent. If you don't know what magnesium to take magnesium complex. Believe me, it'll be fine. You want to generally start with a lower dose of magnesium. So if you read your bottle, mine says that 2 pills is a serving. Start with 1. Magnesium can actually cause some loose bowels or urgent bowels if you're taking too much magnesium at one time. The same is true of the product called Calm. If you have never heard of it, it's a drink and it has magnesium and some other supplements in it that help with sleep. A lot of women in perimenopause and menopause swear by it. But if you decide to start using Calm, make sure that you're using like a half dose to start because if you drastically increase it, it can cause some bowel issues. Now, if you're in perimenopause and menopause and you're already having issues with things like constipation, which is also common in perimenopause and menopause, you might be glad for the magnesium loosening up your bowels. But if you're not having that issue, you may want to be really mindful of just slowly increasing your magnesium. Magnesium will help you sleep. Take it at night. Again, I take all of my supplements at the very beginning of the relax portion of my bedtime routine. And then I tend to unwind and relax for about 30 minutes to 45 minutes, and I find that it really hits then. The other supplement that I take that I am a huge fan of is CBD. Now, I am very sensitive to THC, which is the active ingredient in cannabis that causes the feeling of highness. I cannot consume that at all. I get paranoid. I generally vomit. I get very sick. So I get very, very sick from it. That has made it really hard for me to take a CBD supplement because I've always been worried about trace THC, especially since I react so badly to it. I take Focal, F-O-C-L. That's what I personally take. I like it. It works for me. It's CBD. I get the CBD only blend. They sell a variety. I get the CBD only blend. And it helps me fall asleep and stay asleep. So I highly recommend trying CBD as a way to sleep. Our endocannabinoid system is really developed and really complex. It's actually your endocannabinoid system that is impacted by exercise that causes that, what they call the runner's high, and then that relaxation, that really calm feeling. And so CBD can be really impactful to creating that calm and helping you to sleep. So I highly recommend it. When we are talking about supplements, it's really important that we are honest and forthcoming with our doctors and our pharmacists about what supplements we're taking, including the brands that we take and the dosages that we take. Supplements, even though they're natural, they can be harmful. They can have side effects, and they can interact with our health conditions, as I said earlier about ashwagandha with liver issues. And they can also impact our medications that we're taking. So it's really, really important that we're having really open conversations with our healthcare providers and our pharmacists about the supplements we're taking. That's what pharmacists are there for. They oftentimes know more about drug interactions than even our doctors do, especially when it comes to supplements. I feel like doctors don't know enough about supplements and are still giving very outdated information about supplements. In addition, if you are taking supplements, I highly recommend that you look for a reputable brand that does third-party testing. Third-party testing is essential. In the United States, we do not have supplements regulated by the FDA or any other governing body. You could literally be taking anything, all right, because no one is doing quality testing if there's not third-party testing. I actually have seen a naturopath and a homeopathic doctor and both have recommended Rootology, Thorne, and Pure consistently as brands that are third-party tested. I'm not saying they're the only ones, but I am saying those have been recommended to me. Also, Dr. Amen has some really great supplements, as does Dr. Mary Claire Haver, who runs the Pause line. So those are places to check for supplements. I cannot emphasize enough to you how important it is to prioritize sleep, how important it is to get yourself a great bedtime routine and a morning routine that really helps to set your circadian rhythm. If you are looking to learn more about how to create the perfect bedtime routine or the perfect morning routine, please look through my library, search my library. I have great videos going through this step by step. And I want to remind everybody here that sleep is a huge focus of Menopause Mastery. So if this is something that you've really struggled with, it's so important that you actually get this nailed down. I cannot emphasize enough how detrimental poor quality sleep is to your long-term health and to your menopause journey. So make sure that you check that out. Don't forget to subscribe. I will be back next week talking about more natural ways that you can manage perimenopause and menopause, and you do not want to miss a thing, because you deserve to feel your best at this time in your life. I will see you all next week. Bye, everyone.